Today I'll be tying the Fat Albert. I'll put a hook in the vise, crimp the barb. This is a Daiichi 1710 and a size 10. For my thread, I'm using a Danville brown, and it's a 70 denier or 6/0. I'll start behind the eye of the hook and make touching turns, touching thread turns all the way down. This will provide a little bit of a bite for when I apply the foam. Every once in a while, I'll flatten my thread, go the opposite direction. Every time you take a turn like that, it puts some twist in your thread. So let's go down around the bend and back up to the eye of the hook. This uses a lot of thread, so we'll speed this up a little bit. I found that if I don't put a little bit of a thread base on it, that I have more of the problem of the foam slipping around. And I've come back to a point where I'm going to tie in the foam, and you'll notice where the body is here. The underbody is what I'm going to add. So if you tie in your foam back here, it'll make a smaller brown piece in the very middle there, if you can see that. So I found that if I start my bodies here, they're a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to cut a little bit of a long taper. I'll go ahead and start tying that in, and then I'll pull it a little bit and make open wraps on the way back around the bend. Make several wraps right at the bend so it doesn't slip back, and then as I come back, I'll go in the middle of all of those lumps that were created with the open wraps. Start just a tiny bit back from the initial one. Again, I'll do the same thing with the tan foam. This is just 2 millimeter tan foam. I'll secure it with a couple of wraps, and then again with open loops. See how far I need to go back. Come back and just put them in the middle of those. And now I just want to put a lot of thread in to create a smooth brown bottom there. So this will take a few thread wraps. You could use a larger diameter thread, and this step would be faster. The downside, as you're tying in the foam to secure it, and the body and the wing, it starts to create a lot of extra thread bulk. So I've just decided to take the time and use the 70 denier thread. We'll flatten one more time. You notice that it isn't totally covered in the top, but most of it is on the bottom. So when I'll come back for the final time, I'll try to cover those pieces. I'm a little bit over halfway between the point and where the body is tied in. And I do that, I'm going to create 4 bumps for the body. I'll bring the tan foam forward, just hold it with my thumbnail. I'll pull down and then pull up, and that should tighten it. Pull the foam back, make 1 wrap forward. You can either go underneath or just use your thumb to hold it. And then you notice I end about where I tied in my initial foam. The next step is to bring the other piece of foam forward. That's to cover the body then. Pull down and break your thread. I've had problems with this spool of thread. It seems to be older and not quite as strong as my other 70 denier thread. So I will thread this again. This is just a dental help with your flossing. Seems to provide some good a good tool to thread your thread. We'll catch those and try again. So what I was trying to show is, in order to tighten this, bring it down and up. For the wing, I'm using some poly, that's Fentex slipper yarn. There's a link down below where you can purchase this. This is some of the best poly I've used. I'll go ahead and put that on. I'm just going to fold it over and leave a little bit of slack there, and I can usually tie that in. And then we'll cut it just a little bit longer than the body. We have another piece of tan that goes in on top. That'll hold the foam down, or the poly down. And now for our legs. This is I thought I had the package here. Just some rubber legs that are in black and white. So I just cut that length in half and then that length in half, and I have 4 pieces. To apply these, I'll just put them around the thread, even up the ends, and then I'm able to place that exactly where I want it, or I can adjust them slightly. I'll do the same here. Make a couple more securing wraps, and that's exactly where I want it. I like these right in the middle of the brown. And then I'll pull all of that up and move forward to a point about an eye length behind the eye of the hook. Bring the first one forward. We'll tie that down with a few secure thread wraps. You might be able to do all those at the same time, but I prefer it this way. And then we'll add more legs using the same technique. Putting the rubber legs directly behind or around the thread. Place it exactly where you want it. And let's check. Slight adjustment. And you could trim this off now, but I like to wait because that's just a really good handle for me to move everything out of the way. And we'll use a 5-turn whip finish. Tighten the knot. And just put the edge of your scissors on the thread and pull. Now to trim these, I'll just take the top one, trim it pretty close. And then the other two, I want to keep a little bit of a longer ones for more of a head. So I'll keep that longer. And then just take your scissors on the edge and we'll round that off just a tiny bit. One more snip. For extra security, I like to use some Zap-A-Gap. I've trimmed the brush a little bit so I don't have near as much to worry about, and I'll put it right where my legs are. If you have problems with your foam rolling around, you can add some on the base right where the foam is. And just make sure that your super glue doesn't go in and fill up your eye. That looks pretty good, but you can always take your bodkin. You can trim your legs if you like, or leave them that long. And there is a Fat Albert. I'll leave a link to the fly pattern sheet on my RiverKeeper Fly website below. And hopefully you like this video. Please click the like button and consider subscribing to my RiverKeeper Fly YouTube channel.